Welcome to the STCfit podcast. I'm your host, Amy Louise, and my co-host is Nat Jurek. This is a podcast for high-achieving women who train and want to get lean, strong, and feel confident AF, both inside and out. Together with our team of STCfit coaches, we've taken thousands of clients from body insecurity stemming from a lack of results, uncertainty over what to do, and fear of weight gain to body confidence built on a foundation of results and certainty in the process. On this podcast, you'll get discussions on mindset, nutrition, programming, training, and lifestyle with the intent of cutting through the BS and providing you with the information you need to accelerate your pathway to body confidence. Alrighty guys, hello and welcome everyone. Today we have a very special guest with us. But before we introduce him, I just quickly wanted to mention that Nat and I have our upcoming webinar on Wednesday, next Wednesday, the 31st of March at 7:45. It is called Be Body Confident, and Nat and I will be taking you guys through the 5 biggest mistakes that are holding you back from body confidence. So with that being said, drum roll, it is time to introduce our very special guest, Ben Scott. Welcome, Benjamin.
What's up? That's a very big intro. I'm nervous now.
Like, I used to be here.
Yeah, I was thinking about it this morning. Like, technically, it's not because it's a whole new podcast, right? Like, you guys have a whole channel and all of that, so it's not really like returning to my podcast. You guys are on your own.
On our own. Yeah.
I'm just excited to be the first male you've had on.
Yeah, true.
This is very true. How does that feel?
Hopefully I don't scare the audience away.
Be nice.
Yeah. Who's this meathead?
Before we jump into those questions, I always ask, Nat, how's your training been this week?
We always ask because it's a different story every week, don't we? Training is good. I mean, what are we now? Like, we just got our date for the comp that's happening. So I think we got a little bit of extra time than what we thought. So I'm really pleased to hear that.
Same.
Yeah, so it's pretty cruisy at the moment, like just doing sessions, just eating well. Everything's pretty sweet. So I cannot complain for once.
That's amazing. Well done, Nat.
Yes. Wow. This is new.
Tune in next week.
Yeah.
The roller coaster.
I feel like this is the perfect segue then for our chat that's going to take place with Ben today. We're talking a lot about strength training and powerlifting. As you guys probably know, Ben heads that up for STCfit for us. So, Benjamin, I really want to go with your nickname here, but you hate it, and I feel do we put it to the people?
Proceed at own risk. Let's put it that way.
All right, so we're going to go with it. So Nat and I have come up with a new nickname for Ben, which is Benjamino. So if you guys love it, we would love for you to DM Ben, let him know you love it, and then DM us on STCfit and let us know that you love it too.
I'm like the whitest person ever. I just don't feel like it'll stick. I'm sorry.
It's Benjamino. All right, so getting into our first question for you. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience so far working, in particular with females in the powerlifting scene?
Yeah, so I guess I've moved into like strength-focused stuff over the last 5 years. Obviously started out primarily body comp, fat loss, even bikini stuff back then. But yeah, kind of discovered lifting heavy things myself and liked it. Started introducing that to clients. They really liked it as well. And then obviously noticing, which you girls talk about a lot as well, is like the rewards that come with a performance goal, like having a performance metric to look at week to week rather than just like judging ourselves in the mirror all the time, seemed to work really, really well. Even from an actual physique standpoint as well, like chasing a number seemed to increase the intensity that the girls were working at, which showed really quickly in their physiques as well. So they're much happier with how they looked. They're much more confident in the gym. They're much happier with, I guess, the whole process of training. So then like it just sort of happened organically that evolved into powerlifting. It was like a few people started to come through and was like, hey, you're a bit strong. And then we started obviously doing our lift offs that was sort of like a mock powerlifting setup that was originally just for the coaches to test their egos really. And then clients came and it was really fun. So we drove that, which, yeah, I think the team environment that came from that as well within the group, lots of different trainers from different gyms and everyone sort of meeting together. The energy, of course, of powerlifting tends to be more supportive than like physique sports and stuff. So it worked really well. And then, yeah, from the lift off, it was like, okay, you're actually at a kind of state and national level. How about we actually show up and do some real comps?
Yeah, that was the trajectory, wasn't it? It was the charity day lift offs, and then it was like, wow, we've actually got a whole crew of people who are really, really strong.
Yeah,
keen to take this further.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest lift off we did was like 35 lifters or something. It was bigger than a lot of the local meets at the time. And yeah, I think the squad's about 14 strong at the moment, 15 strong. I think we've got 2 guys, including myself. So yeah, it's pretty heavily female dominated as well. But yeah, it's an awesome squad. Everyone's doing really, really well. So it's fun.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that stands out with like our team is that it can be quite an individual sport, obviously, if you're doing it on your own. So I feel like just doing it in that team environment, like obviously we both experienced that as well. And when we were competing last year, it just like literally sent the whole experience up another level because you're just like surrounded by all of these like-minded individuals and everyone's working towards the same thing. So it literally just like changes the game as well in terms of like how you approach that experience.
That team vibe, especially, well, I was involved in the one that we did last year, that first one, but it was crazy, wasn't it? People, coming from interstate, we'd all been talking to each other on the socials, in Messenger, all of that, like in the Facebook group that we had. But yeah, just to meet everyone and be there, and that vibe at powerlifting comps of being so supportive of each other and like lifting each other up, it was just a crazy feeling. And like the feeling was the same again this year. It's just really, really cool to be part of. And I think especially for so many females, because especially when we're going to talk about newbies in the gym very, very soon, but you might sort of think, oh, is powerlifting mainly dudes or is it mostly dudes? How is that going to be for a female? And then it's like we have this hugely
wasn't our whole team
the
most recent one, wasn't it like all females?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And when people hear that, like, oh,
yeah,
I do belong.
Yeah, I think part of that's like comes down to the culture of the group as well. Like, obviously having you guys coaching and everyone sort of, because it came out of that lift off environment where it was like it's a barbell, guys. Like, let's have some fun. Like, this isn't fucking the end of the world. Let's just lift some stuff, see how we go, enjoy it, and then get burgers at the end of it. Like, that was sort of the mindset around it. So when we took it to competition, it was the same. Don't get me wrong, like the guys we've took to nationals and it was like come down to the last deadlift of like whether you're going to take home a medal or not. Like, it's game face on, but everything leading up to that. And I think my first experience of like a large powerlifting meet was Pro Raw probably a few years ago when it was first starting to get big at the Arnold's. And I'm pretty sure it was Will. I didn't know Will Crozier at the time, but who now coaches me at the time. And he was pulling, I think, for second place. And third place was at the front of the platform on his hands and knees, banging the platform, telling him to get the weight up. And I was like, that's a thing. Like, that's awesome. I want that. I want to be part of that. And that was kind of what attracted me to competing myself. And then obviously once we started the group, it was like, let's make sure that that's the culture we have. Particularly last year, all the photos of like, particularly those third attempt deadlifts, and there's like all of our team hanging off the curtain trying to see what's going on. It's like, that's the shit you want to see. It's really cool.
Goosebumps moment.
Yeah.
So Ben, have you worked with any like complete newbies to lifting before that have progressed through to taking it more seriously? What's that look like?
Yeah, I would say, like, if you guys follow me on social media, I don't really market to powerlifters. What tends to happen is people come with the intent of, like, my tagline is like, look, feel, and lift strong as fuck. So they're in a position where, yes, they still want to look good, but they like the performance outcome basis. So come in, they want to squat, bench, and deadlift because it's cool and it's like around at the moment. So we pursue that. Usually, pre-COVID, it was, all right, we'll funnel you into, you're at a strength now where it's safe to put you into a lift off, try it out, see what you think. Come in casual clothes, you don't need any equipment, show up, have some fun. That's obviously been a little bit more different since, a little bit more challenging since COVID. And then it was just a progression. It was sort of like, hey, we did triples in the gym, and based on those numbers, usually the conversation was based on those numbers, like, you're looking at a podium at a local meet, if not like moving on to like state and national levels. If you want to pursue this, like, you've got the skill set there to, if you want to take it. And it's like, oh yeah, cool. Let's like have a go and just see how it kind of progresses from there. And I think our first year we had 2 go on to nationals. I think we had like 12 qualify last year, but obviously that didn't happen due to COVID. And looking at the numbers this year, it's looking like we'll have quite a lot as well. So it's typically, most people come through, just want to look and perform better. And then after 6 months or so of training, it's like, did you know you're really strong? And most of them are unaware. And then it's like, hey, well, let's go take it to the platform, put a onesie on and see what we can do.
I would say that you and I, Aim, are like a testament to that as well, because we were literally the exact same story. Like, no one really goes into, very rare, you go into powerlifting, you just have like tunnel vision, like, I want to be a powerlifter. So it's just like that natural evolution of like being in the gym and then finding it really rewarding. And then it's like, well, what can I do to make this something that's a little bit scary and a little bit exciting, so I can push myself outside a comfort zone? And same deal, like Jay said the same thing to us. Like, he was like, hey, you guys would do really well at this. Like, this is what we're going to do next. So it's literally the same thing.
Yeah, it still burns my soul a little bit that Amy has decided not to continue as a powerlifter.
I know.
After so many years of trying to convince her, like, hey, Amy, do you know you would have won states in the weekend based on your lift off numbers? You just had to show up. No, okay, cool.
Lockdown for like in that way, because we're on a trajectory there.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna think about the question I was going to ask you, Ben, and totally disregard that 5 seconds of conversation. I was going to say too, I think some people don't realize how kind of, I guess, there's the barrier to entry isn't that high. Like, we can make it out like, oh, there's a platform and there's these, judges or whatnot, but it's like far out, for so many of our clients, like you were saying, Nat, it wasn't they had tunnel vision and wanted to be a power lifter. It's like they're coming to the gym, they're following our programs, they get pretty damn strong. And then, like you said, Ben, it's like, oh, hey, did you know you would actually have done really well just recently? And they're kind of like, oh, and then, we've got the team, they've seen other women do it before. So they're like, you know what, that actually looks pretty cool. I know I've got the supportive team environment behind me. I'll give this a go.
Yeah, I reckon that's like the biggest thing, that the barrier to entry is so low. Like, the first time I ever did triples was in comp prep. Literally. It's like I literally had not done that before. Yeah. I feel like everyone's like, no, I need to have done this before I get to the thing. You don't really need to, as long as you're in a safe position, you don't kill yourself. Like, it's kind of fine.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. Like, powerlifting Australia is growing so fast at the moment. We've got some pretty elite girls here that are actually doing really well on the international stage. And like, you catch them on Instagram or at their comps or whatever, and you're like there's 75 kilo girls that are out totaling me. Like, it's crazy how good they are. So you see that and you're like, oh fuck, like, this is not for me. I think it's such a genetically based sport in terms of like who is going to be the best in the world. But man, like, who can go on the platform? For us, it's literally just technical proficiency. Is there a too high a risk that you're going to get hurt based on your ability to do the movements? No? Awesome. Send it. Go have a great time.
And is that like, if we were to talk about sort of what the checklist might be, could you sort of talk us through what girls could expect there?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's actually similar to like how I would approach something physique wise as well. So Typically most people are familiar with the idea of a physique approach. Like, you do a photo shoot. Did you like dieting for the photo shoot? Cool. Maybe we'll consider a comp prep after that, making sure you got your ducks in a row. For powerlifting, it's kind of similar. It's like, all right, let's take you, like Nat's probably a little bit out of the norm. Let's take you into what it feels like to be under a heavy ass 3. It's like, did you like it or did you hate it? So, and you guys that follow all of our groups, Jason and I banter about this all the time. Like, the thought of me getting under a bar and doing 10 reps is like, shoot me in the face. The thought of doing a double, I'll show up every day of the week. And Jason's a total opposite. So some people like that style of training. They don't mind the little bit of fear that's like, oh, this is pretty fucking heavy. You're sitting on my back. I hope I come up. But yeah, coming back to your question, it's like, can you complete the lifts effectively and safely? So the way we tend to judge that is like, can you fail in position? So if you're coming up out of a squat and you still hold position, you don't all of a sudden go diving forwards or shooting side to side or anything like that. It's just like, I'm in position, but I cannot stand up. Somebody help. That's probably what we would want to see before we put someone on the platform, just to reduce the risk to everyone involved, like the lifters and the spotters, etc. Then I guess it's then becomes a question of what you're trying to do it for. So I've obviously nowadays, now that we've got a bigger team and people are actually coming inquiring specifically about powerlifting, it's like, okay, do you have the time for the workouts? Powerlifting sessions can take a long time. The rest periods are 5 to 7 minutes sometimes. Spend a lot of time on your phone eating lollies if you're me, maybe not if you're small girls like these two. What was cereal, isn't it, Amy, that we eat between rest breaks or something?
What did you say?
Cereal or something like that, isn't that?
We're not going to
rest break fuel.
I'm getting roasted on this podcast now.
Yeah, you're the non-power lifter. We're after you. So yeah, it's like fitting in the session time. And then, so the way I sort of explain it to people is like, dieting really hard or getting lean, you're hungry, you're probably tired, and like, you obviously have to put in the time for training. You got training sessions and often like cardio and stuff as well. So the total time is kind of going to be similar. You're going to have sore muscles like DOMs and stuff majority of the time if you're used to this sort of like physique style training. Coming from powerlifting, you tend not to have the DOMs and the soreness and stuff like that. You tend to have like a joint that's a bit annoying, like a little niggle somewhere. And when you get deep into prep, if you've heard the stories of these girls, your brain isn't actually what it used to be. You get a little bit tired. You would like to sleep a lot. Your steps tend to decline quite quickly. So it's just being prepared for that, like you would with any other goal. At the end of the day, deciding to compete for me is deciding that you're an athlete rather than a recreational kind of gym guy. And I think there's value in treating it like that. If you don't want to pursue that, like, you can still do testing and all that sort of stuff, like do your ones, do them in the gym and stuff. I wouldn't go spending the money and all of that on equipment and entry and all of that if you just want to do it for fun. Novice meets, that sort of stuff, stay in there and enjoy it. If you want to pursue it seriously, then you're going to have to accept that it's like any other sport, that you need to have some level of commitment.
I think for our women too, all of us, we attract that high achieving woman, and it's a really good outlet for her to be able to engage in something that she's getting, I guess, that tangible feedback of like how she's doing, rather than just, I guess, just like training.
Yeah.
Without that, and Nat and I have spoken a lot about when someone's in a deficit phase, it's kind of like, yeah, looking in the mirror every week and you might see some changes. There's like a bit more, there's a lot more of that instant gratification. And it's like, if a woman is like, hang on a second, I want to get out of this cycle, they're in maintenance, or that, maybe even in a surplus. I think this also is a great avenue for those periods as well, or, in a maintenance period as well. Like, it's a really different shift in perspective, because, you are still getting some instant gratification from the numbers every week and following a strength-based program, sure. But it is, like you said, Ben, taking it off the physique for a moment.
Yeah.
And it's like you start to step into a different world. And it's strength training. And I think I was prepping for a lift off, sort of when I came out of my, like post-show period, I ate heaps and then sort of was in a deficit after that. But just getting into that strength training again. And that was the first time I really paid attention to numbers and was starting to get excited. And it was like a couple of things happening at once. And yeah, I just saw my whole perspective shift on like, what's fun. Like you said, what am I here for? What are the results I can see? What do they mean to me? And, my own personal confidence is huge when you start to see like, I'm actually strong. Like I'm a strong female.
Yeah. So you guys obviously talk about the value-based goals a lot on here. I find so much fulfillment in powerlifting because of the value set that I have. It's like work ethic is one, growth and learning is another. It's like those two, for me, that's powerlifting. It's like every day is a challenge. There's always something new to learn. By the time your squat's perfect, your physique's probably changed, so you're moving different. Like there's always something, I think, to chase. And I guess like even with my own journey, I guess if you call it that, through this stuff, it's like I was nat size when I started lifting. And when I see myself in the mirror, I'm still not much bigger than that, even though I walk around at 97 kilos. Thank you. Indy, excuse the interruption of my dog. But we can be excited because my shoes have arrived. That's what really matters.
What shoes did you get?
I got some Dunks and I got some Jordans. The Dunks are bright orange.
Did you get whoa, I just had a brain fade. Did you get the Jordans from last week?
Couldn't do it. They were like $750. I couldn't do it. So I got Carmine's, which are a little bit more responsible.
That's why I just stuttered a lot.
Yeah.
Because I was like, whoa.
I didn't tell my fiance that I bought 2 pairs, and I think she's out there listening. So now she knows. That's fine. I'll deal with that afterwards.
Easy way to get that done.
Yeah. So what I was saying is like that get up every day with a physique goal, pursuing like, do I look better? Am I leaner? Am I bigger? Every fucking day. It was just like, I was weighing my meat to the gram, my pasta to the gram, taking like Tupperware containers to family meat, like family dues and stuff like that. And I was like, and I probably did, if I'm honest with myself, I probably didn't have the genetic profile to ever be good at like bodybuilding anyway. So that created like, I guess a lot of stress and stuff around my training. Was like, well, why am I even doing this? And then it was like, well, I can kind of control the outcome of how much stronger I can get. And the weight on the barbell is not determined by my mood and how I feel about myself on the day. It's determined by how much weight's on the bar. So it was the metric of being able to go like, yes, that's 100 kilos this week and it's 105 kilos next week. I made progress, rather than, do I look better? Is it lighting? Is it water? Like that I was just running around in circles with that. So I think, like you said, Amy, if you're coming out of a time where maybe you were stuck in that loop of like not feeling great about your body and all that sort of stuff, that's the value I see of pursuing any kind of performance goal. But specifically, like we're talking about, powerlifting is an option to follow and go like, okay, if I get better at this thing, there's a measurable, tangible outcome to it.
Yeah, I think we've seen it too with lots of even female like bikini competitors will do powerlifting in their off seasons, and it really helps with that perspective shift. But I think it's everything you've just said is so applicable to our female clients as well. They feel the same thing. That pressure to look a certain way. And it's like, I love training, but this is getting stressful for me now and I can't diet forever. So what are the options? And this is a great pathway. Like you said, it hits a lot of their values too. So some women might still be hesitant at this stage. So could you take us through what does like a typical comp prep and the comp day look like? We might split that up into two. So if we go with the comp prep first.
Yeah. So once you've made a decision that you want to compete, typically by that point, we already know that you've got those ducks in a row, like your nutrition, your sleep, all of that stuff is kind of where it needs to be. Training is regular. Your squat, bench, and deadlift proficiency is there. All right, now we're going to focus on actually getting down into a meet. So we use a block periodization model, which just means like there's certain times where we focus on certain stuff. So to start with, your training won't look that much different to like a typical body composition program. It just might have a bit more barbell work, a little less machine work. And then we keep in, because powerlifting itself is a little bit dysfunctional, there's a lot of the same positions and patterns inside it that can cause just dramas over time. When we're in that high rep sort of phase, high set phase, there's a lot of what you could refer to as like function stuff. Just like making sure your hips work well, making sure your shoulders work well. So then when we're 6 weeks out, it's not like, hey, my shoulder hurts, my hip hurts or whatever. So it's kind of like a prep before the prep, make sure everything's where it should be. Then essentially simplicity of program is basically as intensity goes up, which is like intensity being weight, as that goes up, volume comes down. So you'll find you'll do less sets per week, but the weight on the bar will progressively get heavier. So out of season, pre-prep, you might be doing like a few of our girls were doing 8s with a 2-second pause at the bottom. Now we're starting to move into, I think, 5s. Then we'll move into 3s, eventually start practicing the skill of doing singles. So I think a lot of people get confused too of like, if I decide to do powerlifting, then I just have to do singles forever. It's not actually a very efficient way to program. It's probably not the best way to approach things. You end up usually in most cases just broken. So you still get to have fun with some machine work. Nat, I think last block you had, and even at the moment you got leg press twice a week. So you still get to get in and have a crack at that sort of stuff. But yeah, essentially the accessory work comes out the closer you get to comp, the sets comes down, the rest periods go up, the load goes up, the fatigue outside of the gym goes up, and that pretty much leads you into the comp.
In terms of, we'll go through the comp day now. What does that look like?
All right, so let's take it as the approach of like a sanctioned meet. So sanctioned meets means like you've actually joined a federation, you've paid your membership, things sort of count as such. Before that, I'd recommend probably doing a novice comp, or if you're one of our guys listening to this, like a lift off or something. But you kind of just get in and experience what it's like. You can show up in plain clothes and just like run what you run sort of thing. When you move into sanctioned competitions, there's obviously each federation has some different rules around how the movements need to be executed, what you've got to wear on the day, all of that sort of stuff. So the day will usually start 8:30, 9 a.m. with a weigh-in. Some federations do 24-hour weigh-ins, but not many. Most of them are 2 hours. So get there, make sure you make weight. Typically because you're super anxious and frightened that you're not going to make weight, you haven't eaten yet or drank anything yet.
Can't relate.
So after that, basically you've got 2 hours to eat, start your warm-ups. So what you'll have a warm-up room at the gym. So whatever process you typically follow in the gym, you'll follow for your warm-up. So we like to do like a 5, a triple, and then practice some 1s. And then your opener is almost like your last warm-up. So your opener, so I guess I give a bit of how the whole day works after that. Basically, you have 3 attempts at each lift. So you've got the squat, the bench, the deadlift. You've got 3 attempts, and then the highest weight that is a successful lift in each one of those 3 is counted to your total at the end of the day. So if you were to miss your 3rd lift for whatever reason, then your 2nd one would be the highest weight. So that's the one that's counted. First attempts, so your first lift for each lift, is typically something that you know you could probably hit for 2 or 3 reps. Blow the cobwebs out, get the nerves out of the system. I honestly don't think I can remember my first squat in any of my comps. Just so much going on, like crowds, other lifters. I compete in GPC, so there's sort of like 90 lifters over a weekend. So I don't remember any of my first attempts in my squats ever. And then I sort of like, okay, the mist comes down, the heart rate comes down, and I can sort of focus on what's going on. So super easy. Second attempt, typically, depending on how you've been going on the way through, will be somewhere close to the best you've done in the gym. You're carrying a lot of fatigue when you're training in the gym. So particularly as we drive into a comp peak, we would call it, like you're real tired. things are pretty hard. So if you've done it in the gym, you should be able to put it together on the platform. That's just going to usually come down to like psychological factors as to whether you remember your cues and all that sort of stuff. And then, as we like to say with STCfit, the third attempt is just send it. So typically I'll have written down for all our girls, like first attempt, second attempt's usually preset. Only if something weird happens on the first attempt will we change the second, and then we look at the second attempt and make a judgment call on what we're going to do for the third. Typically there'll be, hopefully at most meets, you'll be lucky enough to have 2 passes. So that's 2 groups that do all of their squats, then group 2 do all of their squats, all of their bench, and so on and so on. So that'll give you a nice break that you get to go have something to eat, have a drink, hopefully go outside, just get away from it a little bit, let heart rate come down, I guess, go into that parasympathetic state just for a period of time because they can be long days. Then you come back in, warm up for your next lift, and so on and so on. So yeah, I think just even explaining that, like the things that maybe people are afraid of is like how long the day goes for. And they think like, because I'm going to be here for 5 hours, which is typical, that you have to be switched on for 5 hours. I think a big part of it is actually learning to switch off in between the lifts that you've got to do. So you're not like mentally fried by the end of the day, which will affect your performance. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I actually was just wanting to chuck a question to you, Nat. Was the first comp you did APU last year versus APU this year, were they different experiences for you or not?
Do you know what? I was actually really shocked at how like relaxed I was for the first one. I think having our team around, and there were so many of us and there were more coaches there as well. It was just such a relaxed environment. But I did get to my first squat and I nearly stepped forward instead of back to like unrack. Like in the videos, I looked to the side to like see which way I have to step. So I was like, what the fuck do I do? Like everything just went out of my head, then went back, and I was just, it was really, really chill. And then for the next one, it was just like another level of just like being relaxed. Like it was just such an easy like experience. I expected to be so stressed and like so anxious about it all. But yeah, I definitely think like having a big group around us and just like a support network helped. But I do have to say that I think in terms of doing a comp prep and like the experience and the lead up and the day itself, the thing that probably like knocked me for 6 the most was just not realizing how much it would impact you from a fatigue standpoint. And like you guys can attest to that because I was absolutely fried, even like the week after, like you just knocked out. And even just like having conversations with my clients, like during the lead up or like even after comp, and they're like, why are you so tired? Like, why can't you put a sentence together? So I just don't think
why are you leaving your shoes at the gym?
Yeah, why are you barefoot on the street?
Have you seen any commonalities with like when that real fatigue starts to set in? Is it a couple of weeks before? Is it a month before? Have you seen patterns? And
I'd say once you go, so we would refer to as the peak blocks. It's like last like 3 weeks. It gets hard. It was funny. Like found out the date this morning, but there was potential that we were 12 weeks out. As of yesterday, I was under the impression we could be 12 weeks out. I think it's actually closer to 15. Yeah. So yesterday's session was a kind of the first time comp prep bend kind of came out. My attitude was a little bit different in the garage, and like spotters in and music up, let's go sort of thing. And I'm pretty sure I looked at my Garmin this morning. I had 9 hours, just over 9 hours sleep last night because I fell asleep at like 9 o'clock. I was smashed. So like, I think when you first introduce it, there's a little bit of it, you adapt to it a bit. But yeah, that last 4 weeks is, you guys know, like, it's like, okay, guys, I'm only able to do my job for the next month. Don't expect ideas, creativity, anything else. I'll just do my non-negotiables and I'll see you in 5 weeks.
Actually, in terms of like differences from the first comp to the second comp, I would say that fatigue hit earlier and harder the first time. I don't know if that was because it was the first time doing it, but I would probably say as well, just in terms of like programming and like the program looked very different. Yep. that played a part because that's probably the biggest difference. I think I was like 2 weeks out and I was like, I don't feel as shit as I felt last time.
Yeah, so I guess on that, like how the prep goes will affect both the anxiety you have on the day and the fatigue as well. How fit you are beforehand, like getting powerlift, like trust me, I get it. I'm the fat powerlifter life. Neck rolls on comp day always, but the goal is obviously to be in some kind of condition at the start so you can hold on to something by the end. The more conditioned you are, the more you keep your steps in that general activity and stuff and don't like let that succumb to that fatigue, the healthier you'll be, the better your brain performance will be, and your physical performance as well. Speaking to what Nat said, how the prep is designed will play a role in as well. So we only had 8 weeks last time around. So I took the approach of like purely just on skill. We didn't even really drive intensity that high at all this block because we didn't have time. So it was just like get under the bar and do the movement lots of times. So at least tech's good on the day, and then we'll let the weight take care of itself. This meet, because a lot of the girls will move on to nationals, I'm going to probably take a similar approach, more focused around moving well on the day, allowing us then, so like Nat said, you're fried for a week after comp. Then you've got like, okay, I've got to build some conditioning again over the next 3 to 4 weeks. We're only going to have probably 15 weeks between the two comps. So if we want to make any kind of progress, we don't have a whole lot of time to do that. So I need the recovery time from the meet this time around to be short so we can get ready for those that want to go to nationals. So yeah, like how the prep is set up is a little bit, has a bit of effect on that fatigue and stuff as well. And speaking to like Nat, I know first comp around, there was like some making weight stuff, which always being at weight early makes the stress of comp day way lower because you're not like, I've had girls that like have driven to the gym in 3 jumpers and a heater on just like because they need that last 200 grams before they get there. Maybe Nat did that too by looks at that face.
I want to verbalize
yeah, but if you've got weight sorted out early, that makes a big difference. My first meet actually basically sprained a bone in my shin, and I couldn't walk like 3 or 4 days out before the meet. So obviously the squats, like I said, I can't remember my first squat because I was so nervous that as soon as I got to the bottom of that squat, I was going to go again. And it was fine. My second meet, like I think I PB'd by like 85 kilos. So it was like the most fun I've ever had on a platform in my life because it was like every single time I hit the bar was a PB. So yeah, I think the lead up plays a big role in it as well.
Just touching now or on the conditioning component. So there seems to be a lot of resistance based around the idea of like lifting heavy or powerlifting, you know, your physique goes in the trash can. So what's the go with that?
Okay. How do we come at this politely? If you eat like an asshole, you will probably not have a very good physique. Does lifting heavy drive appetite? Yeah. Volume might too, though, depending on the person. So like if you want to blame that, sure. I've just had one of my clients who I programmed nutrition for just qualify for nationals, and she's like, her quads have got separation and we're 10 weeks out from her photo shoot. Like she'll be peeled for that and then she'll go and do nats. We've done, I think the first meet you guys did, or we did a lift off or something, and there was a meet, and then 4 weeks later we did the photo shoot. Yeah. All of my girls that did lift off also did the photo shoot. No. If you look at the top people in the sport, like to answer that question, one, go on my profile and just have a look at the girls that compete and also obviously involved in physique as well that have a preference to it. Check out Steffi Cohen. Like I don't know, she's pretty fucking lean. Yeah, I don't think you need to be overweight to be a good powerlifter.
Yeah. It is strange, isn't it? It's like I'm just sort of thinking about the girls I've coached as well. They've all tracked macros, and well, like you said, they've all got their nutrition in order, really happy with their physiques. It doesn't mean if you lift heavy, you're gonna gain like 50 kilos of body fat. Like that's just totally misguided. And yeah, like you were saying, I'm pretty sure like not that it was at a sanctioned meet, but like my heaviest deadlift was, we were also cutting for a photo shoot. So like lots of women are worried or, you know, about strength and deficits and all that sort of stuff as well. And it's like, look, you know, wouldn't be the most ideal place to be, you know, cutting someone into a meet, but like we just don't need to worry about that sort of stuff. Like the nutrition side of things, it doesn't have to be out
there. Yeah, I think we did our photo shoot 4 weeks after my comp, and it was probably the most comfortable I've ever been with my shirt off.
Yeah.
I've been leaner, like when I had total body dysmorphia and was like, no, I don't have like veins in my abs, so I'm not taking my shirt off. But like, I was very comfortable, like, yeah, let's take my shirt off and do some deadlifts. Like, that's fine. Look, I think where it comes from, and we have banter within our group that I'm the fat powerlifter anyway. I think if you look at powerlifting, most people think of 110, 125, 150 kilo dudes that train 10 hours a week, that are massive humans, that have 600,000-700,000 calorie a day requirements just to maintain body weight. And that's what we associate like nutrition for powerlifting. Like Eddie Hall's 10,000 a day diet thing that's on YouTube. It's like, that's not what a normal person does. Like, you still have your standard calorie requirements, protein requirements. Like, that stuff doesn't change just because you change the style of training.
Yeah, it's kind of made me think too, like with the whole like bikini competitors or whatever, the whole cheat meal rubbish, like with fantasy shakes and pizzas and stuff. It's like, what? Like, this is just not a realistic example of or a reflection of what we do with our nutrition when we do these focus blocks.
Yeah. You go, Ben.
I'm actually really conscious, like myself, of I don't post anything to do with my nutrition ever, because it's like, you can't, like, imagine I'm trying to attract Amy as my client, who's like half my size, almost body weight. It's like, she doesn't want to see what I eat, because it's not it's not acceptable in terms of achieving her goals. So it's like, why display that and then have that disjointed thought process of like, well, I have to eat like that and do that. Like I've put some stretches in to make. So my problem is I usually have to go up to weight class. I've done that in some unhealthy ways that have involved lots of tubs of Haagen-Dazs and put neck rolls on the back of my head and stuff. But that was to go up a weight class. I was comfortable with what was going on with that. But most of our girls that are conscious of physique all still look really good.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of context in there. And as well, like, if you think about this realistically, if you're getting prescribed nutrition by your coach and you're sticking to that, and then you're going into the gym and you're following that because you want to have a really, solid performance on the day, it's likely to increase your adherence, and you're probably going to get in better shape than you've ever been in your life, because you're more committed to both of those things now more than ever. So it's almost like a disjointed way of looking at things, that it's like, if I go and do this thing, it's going to send my physique backwards, when in reality, everything that you're doing to get to that point is actually supporting your physique outcome as well.
Yeah, I think if we have this discussion, it's probably important to raise one potential con of going into powerlifting, and that's the weight classes. It's like you talk to a lot of women in weight class sports, and there's a lot of that same kind of dysmorphia around, I must be a certain weight, that scale attachment and stuff like that. I think we're lucky as a group that that's not a priority to us. Like, I'd rather you compete 2 kilos heavier and hit a better total. Like, again, we're not playing for, no one's on the platform playing for like 10 grand. Like, you get to take home a plastic medal at the end of the day. That's awesome. Like, you're going to progress in your strength and all of that sort of stuff anyway. So killing yourself to make a weight class and all that sort of stuff is probably not in our culture. It's not something that we do a lot. If a national title's on the line and it's the difference between winning and not, then like probably pursue that. But advice that I would give to people looking at like novice and first competitions, compete at what you weigh at. Forget about trying to make a weight class or anything. Just compete at what you weigh at.
Yeah, I think it is a really important topic to touch on, because it can be just another area where that whole hitting numbers and being a certain weight can really come into it. I must admit, like a couple of years ago, it sort of piqued my interest for a little bit, like, oh, weight class that I can fit into. And it's like, you know, you said our culture's not based around that. And I think that that's really helped. So yeah, for any women who are looking into this, it's like, yeah, what's the culture, I guess, of who you're hanging out with and all that sort of stuff. And I guess just think about this critically, like Ben was saying, like, it's, you know, a bit of a plastic trophy. Maybe there are some, you know, records as you get more proficient or at the sport, but it's like, just let's have a think about this.
Yeah. Don't take a world championship approach to your first 3 meets. I don't think that's beneficial for anyone in the long run. And it goes the other way too. Like, Nat, I hope it's okay to share this, but you're sort of in a position where like you're over your weight class, and it's like we've changed federations, which has actually pushed you into a different sort of area where you're kind of mid-range. It's like, do we get bigger? Do we get leaner? And the answer I had was like, it's a local meet, compete what you weigh out. We're actually, the federation we've gone through now will score their local meets based on Wilks, which is a formula based on body weight. It's scaled and all fancy. So basically everyone's competing on a level playing field for the whole competition, male and female. So like, it's on Wilks, this comp anyway. So just be where you feel your best, be where you feel the strongest. And then the comment I made to Jace was like, just get her shredded for Nats. So then she makes the weight class, start thinking about that now, and worry about it then.
Yeah. And I will say that, like, even approaching both now from a different perspective, like the first time knowing, I didn't even know because I only found out like a week before the comp that I was over my weight class, but being conscious of that versus it not actually being something that I had to worry about, but just knowing that it was like something that we might have to think about down the track. Just like totally different approach, like just in terms of like psychologically, like it not being one of the main things that you're focusing on. It's like, cool, let's just, you know, stick to my diet so I can train hard in the gym and the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah. It's interesting too, like what I find at an intermediate level, and this might be a bit nerdy now, but like there's really only 15, 20 kilo differences typically between the different totals in terms of like from say the 60s to the 67s. The totals are only 20 kilos apart. So if you diet super hard and you do your dehydration protocol the night before and you're still feeling shit when you walk out on the platform for your squats, do you miss your third squat and your third deadlift because you're tired? There's your 20 kilos. So you may as well have just competed heavier, had a way better experience. Maybe you actually lifted, your third attempts would have been higher and they stuck, and you ended up in a better position relative to the weight class anyway. That's the approach I take to my coaching all the time. Because again, it's like, it's the long-term vision of what happens outside of the platform, not just what happens on the platform.
For any ladies that are listening to this at the moment, they're kind of thinking this might sound like a pathway that I'm interested in, and they haven't done anything like this before. They haven't done anything competitive to do with the gym before. What are the major shifts, or I guess even, you know, when we're talking about like having their ducks in a row, what are the things that I guess that they need to look at and have a think about before considering?
I'd maybe take it in a slightly different direction in terms of what you would need. I would start with a coach if you've not done it before. Like, yes, we're all coaches and it's self-serving and shameless plug, whatever, but do it with a coach. Even if you're a PT that's listening to this and they're like, I want to learn it. Like I did that for my first comp, but I hired someone that I checked in with every 4 weeks. I was like, is this what I need to be doing? If you're unfamiliar, it's new, etc., like it can get dangerous quick. So a coach would be step number one for me. I don't think you need to be like at a powerlifting gym and have the best equipment. Like all our girls prep at Good Life with bumper plates. And I mean, Nat didn't know which way to go out of the rack, but other than that, we've done pretty well.
Problem.
So yeah, like maybe closer to the meet, have some exposure to like actually comp spec gear. But yeah, I think if you're sitting there now thinking like, yeah, this actually sounds really cool, I want to take this approach, find a good coach, still prioritize everything else that the girls talk about all the time: mindset, nutrition, training, good execution, good programming, and good lifestyle habits. Like the 5 pillars that you girls talk about all the time, have those in place and you'll get the best outcomes regardless of what the goal is, it doesn't change, including powerlifting.
You obviously head up the powerlifting team for us, for STCfit. Can you talk to us, I guess, what it looks like for that team this year and moving forward, and are there any lift-offs and all that kind of jazz?
So lift-off is pending, the longest pending in the world, which we'll make announcements about eventually, that there may be a facility that would be able to host a lift-off sometime this year, maybe. That's the best I can give you on that. In terms of competition, so we've chosen to move to APL this year, just based on really like their values and stuff that they have. They're very small in here in Victoria. We're sort of, I guess, kicking off their second meet ever in Victoria, I think, just based on what they're doing in Queensland, the values they have in terms of like building the sport, we really like. So that'll be cool. So I think, like I said, we're about 15-ish weeks away from that. So if you're looking at like, hey, this is something I want to do right now, then yeah, if you wanted to get in touch with us and be part of that, now would be the time for that. Otherwise, yeah, looking at a novice meet at some stage. For us, yeah, we'll do, what did it end up being, Nat? July 4th?
July 4th, yeah.
Yeah, it should be an easy one to remember. So yeah, July 4th, and I think Nationals is September. Once there's a facility available to us, then we will run a lift off. We haven't run one for ages, and we're really excited to do that. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Maybe I'll do the lift off.
Yes, you will.
Better.
Lock it in.
I say that with like a 2 out of 10 sincerity.
But we actually have, we had a guy in our first year, but we actually have myself and another guy who are going to compete in our one as well. So yay, team boys.
If there are any dudes listening to this,
you definitely have a huge male audience.
Awesome. Ben, I stuff up everyone's Insta handles whenever I do this. So what's your Insta handle?
At Ben Scott STC.
Perfect. If you guys have resonated with anything specific in this episode, definitely take a screenshot, post us on your stories. If you wouldn't mind tagging Ben, myself, and Nat, and STCfit, that would be amazing. Just again, with our webinar, if you click the link in our bio on our Instagram page and click events, you'll be able to get your free tickets there. So that is for next Wednesday. Nat and I are very excited for that. Natty, is there anything else?
That is it. That is all.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben.
No problems. I'll just throw in there, like, if anyone didn't have their questions answered today, feel free to just jump in my DMs. Like, powerlifting now is something that I do more for fun than anything else. So yeah, feel free to hit me up. I won't be annoyed. Ask anything you want.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.